I was sitting in my brand new kitchen, holding my morning coffee, and looking out at the small garden that was finally mine. At 28, I had just purchased my first house after working 3 jobs for 3 years straight to save enough for the down payment. The keys felt heavy in my pocket, symbols of independence I had fought so hard to achieve. Everything felt perfect in that moment. I had no idea that a single phone call was about to shatter my peace and reveal a family betrayal I never saw coming. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever had to make a tough choice about family. And subscribe because this story will show you why sometimes saying no is the kindest thing you can do. So here is how my dream home became the center of a family storm I never saw coming. I have always been the responsible one in my family. While my sister Madison got married young and had 3 kids by age 25, I focused on building my career as an accountant at a small firm here in Denver. I had been renting a tiny 1-bedroom apartment for years, carefully saving every penny I could spare. The rent was eating up half my paycheck, and I knew that homeownership was my path to real financial stability. The house hunting process took 6 months of my life. I must have looked at 20 different houses, each one either too expensive, too small, or in a neighborhood that did not feel right. Then I found it. A 3-bedroom ranch-style house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, complete with a basement and a 2-car garage. The asking price was reasonable, and after negotiating, I managed to secure it for $30,000 down with monthly mortgage payments of $1,200. When I signed those papers on a Friday afternoon and received the keys, I felt a rush of accomplishment unlike anything I had ever experienced. This was mine. I had worked overtime shifts, skipped vacations, and lived on ramen noodles for months to make this dream a reality. I drove straight to the house, walked through each room slowly, and imagined how I would decorate each space. The master bedroom would have soft blue walls, the spare rooms could be an office and a guest room, and the basement would be my entertainment area. That evening I decided to share my good news with my family. I called my mom Patricia, expecting to hear excitement and congratulations in her voice. Instead, there was a long pause after I told her about the purchase. "You bought a house?" she asked, her tone flat. "You did not think to discuss this with us first?" I was confused by her reaction. I had been living independently for 10 years, paying my own bills, making my own decisions. "Mom, I am 28 years old. I can buy a house without asking permission." "It is not about permission, Serena. It is about family. We should have been part of this decision." The conversation ended awkwardly, leaving me with a strange feeling in my stomach. When I called my dad Robert, his reaction was even more puzzling. He asked detailed questions about the location, the size, and the price, but his tone was cold and calculating rather than celebratory. When I tried calling Madison to share my news, she did not answer. Hours later, I received a brief text message: "We need to talk." I spent that first night in my new house feeling confused and hurt. I had expected my family to be proud of my achievement. Instead, I felt like I had done something wrong. As I lay in my sleeping bag on the bedroom floor, waiting for my furniture to be delivered, I could not shake the feeling that something bigger was happening behind the scenes. Growing up, I had always been expected to check with my parents before making any significant decisions. Even in college, I had to get approval for my class schedules and part-time jobs. Madison, on the other hand, had always been given more freedom. When she wanted to drop out of college to marry Derek, our parents supported her choice. When she decided to have 3 children in quick succession, despite financial struggles, they never questioned her judgment. I had worked hard to establish my independence, and I thought my parents respected that. Apparently, I was wrong. 3 days after I moved into my house, my mom called and asked me to come to a family meeting on Sunday afternoon. She said it was important and that everyone needed to be there. I assumed they wanted to see pictures of the house, or maybe plan a housewarming party. I was so naive. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere felt formal and tense. Madison was there with her husband Derek and their 3 children, who were ages 5, 7, and 9. The kids were running around the living room while the adults sat in a circle like we were about to hold some kind of intervention. My dad cleared his throat and began speaking in his serious voice, the one he used when discussing business matters. Serena, we asked you here because we have been planning something that involves your new house. We have been working on a solution for Madison's family situation for months. I looked around the room, noticing that everyone except me seemed to know what was coming. Madison was staring at her hands. Derek was fidgeting with his phone, and my parents were watching me with expectant expressions. What situation? I asked, though I was beginning to get a sick feeling in my stomach. Madison finally looked up, and I could see tears in her eyes. Derek lost his job 3 months ago. We have been falling behind on rent, and our landlord served us with an eviction notice last week. We have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Derek jumped in defensively. It is not my fault. The job market is terrible right now. My company downsized, and I was one of the last hired, so I was first to go. My mom leaned forward and took over the conversation. We have been trying to figure out how to help Madison and the children. Hotels are too expensive for a family of 5 and none of us have extra bedrooms. Then when you mentioned you were house hunting, we thought it was perfect timing. Perfect timing for what? I asked, though I was starting to understand where this was heading. My dad smiled like he was announcing good news. Madison's family is going to move in with you. It will just be temporary until Derek finds another job and they can get back on their feet. You have 3 bedrooms and a basement, so there is plenty of space. The room went silent as I processed what they had just told me. My parents had been planning my living situation without consulting me. They had made decisions about my house, my space, my life, as if I had no say in the matter. Wait, I said slowly. You planned this before I even bought the house. You knew Madison needed a place to live, and you just assumed I would take them in. Madison started crying harder. Serena, please, we have nowhere else to go. The children need stability. They cannot be homeless. I looked at Derek, who was nodding along with his wife's plea. This was the same Derek who had spent money on a new motorcycle last year, while Madison was asking our parents for grocery money. The same Derek who worked under the table jobs to avoid paying child support from his previous marriage. The same Derek who always had an excuse for why he could not keep steady employment. How long is temporary? I asked. Just a few months, Derek said quickly. 6 months at most. I have some leads on jobs, and once I am working again, we will find our own place. I thought about what 6 months would look like. 8 people living in a 3-bedroom house. 3 children who had no discipline and no indoor voice. Derek, who spent most days playing video games instead of job hunting. Madison, who had never learned to clean up after herself. My peaceful private sanctuary would become chaos. And you all discussed this without me. My mom's voice took on a defensive tone. We wanted to make sure we had a plan before we brought it to you. We knew you would want to help family. But I was remembering other times Madison had needed help. The $5,000 she borrowed for Derek's legal fees and never paid back. The time she moved in with our parents for just a month and stayed for 6 months, leaving the house a disaster when she finally left. The countless emergency phone calls asking for money for utilities, groceries, or car repairs. I need to think about this, I said. The room erupted in protests. My dad accused me of being selfish. My mom reminded me of all the times they had helped me growing up. Madison sobbed about her children sleeping in their car. Derek started getting angry, saying I owed it to family to help in a crisis. But all I could think about was my mortgage payment, my utility bills, my grocery budget, and my sanity. I had worked so hard for this house, and now they wanted to turn it into a halfway house for my sister's family's poor decisions. The family meeting turned into a full-scale confrontation that lasted 3 hours. What started as a discussion became an emotional battlefield where I was painted as the villain for not immediately agreeing to their plan. My mom delivered what she clearly thought was the final argument. If you do not help Madison, you are not welcome in this family anymore. Family takes care of family, and if you cannot understand that, then you are not the daughter we raised. My dad decided to bring up money, which was his favorite manipulation tactic. "We paid for your college education, Serena. We supported you when you needed help getting started in life. Now it is time for you to give back to the family." I almost laughed at this. I had received academic scholarships that covered 70% of my tuition. My parents had helped with some expenses, yes, but I had worked part-time jobs throughout college to pay for books, food, and housing. Meanwhile, they had fully funded Madison's wedding, her first apartment deposit, and countless other expenses over the years. Madison pulled out her biggest weapon, the children. "Serena, look at your nephews. Do you really want them to be homeless? Do you want them sleeping in shelters or in our car? What kind of aunt does that make you?" The three boys were indeed looking at me with big eyes, not really understanding what was happening, but sensing the tension in the room. I loved those kids, but I also knew that their parents had made choices that led to this situation. Derek had been unemployed multiple times in the past 5 years, always for reasons that were supposedly beyond his control. Madison had never worked while the children were young, which I understood, but she had also never encouraged Derek to find stable employment or pushed him to be more responsible. Derek started getting more aggressive as the conversation continued. "Look, Serena, we are not asking for charity here. We will contribute to expenses. We can help with utilities and groceries." But Derek had been saying things like this for years. Every time he borrowed money or asked for help, he promised to pay it back or contribute his share. It never happened. His contribution usually amounted to eating our food and using our resources while promising that his next paycheck would fix everything. The breaking point came when Derek actually started planning out the sleeping arrangements without my consent. "The boys can share the basement, Madison and I will take the smaller bedroom, and we can set up a play area in the living room. You will barely notice we are there." That was when everything became crystal clear. This was not a request for temporary help. This was a hostile takeover of my life and my space. They had already decided that I had no choice in the matter. They were telling me how my own house was going to be reorganized to accommodate their needs. I stood up and looked around the room at my family. The answer is no. The silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. "You cannot be serious," my mom said. "Serena, think about what you are doing," my dad warned. Madison started sobbing. "I cannot believe my own sister would let my children suffer like this." Derek got angry. "This is ridiculous. You have all that space, and you are going to let family be homeless. What is wrong with you?" I took a deep breath and said what I should have said from the beginning. "I worked 3 jobs to save for this house. I did not consult you because I am an adult, making adult decisions about my own life. I am not responsible for fixing problems that you created. Derek, you have been unemployed or underemployed for most of the past 5 years. Madison, you have borrowed thousands of dollars from this family and never paid any of it back. I am not going to sacrifice my home, my peace, and my financial stability to enable more of the same behavior." My mom's face turned red with anger. "You have chosen a house over your family." "No," I replied. "You chose Madison's poor planning over my boundaries. You made plans for my life without including me, and now you are angry that I will not go along with it." My dad shook his head in disappointment. "We raised you better than this, Serena. We taught you to put family first." "You taught me to put Madison first," I corrected. "You taught me that my needs and boundaries do not matter as long as Madison gets what she wants. Well, I am done with that." Madison made one final attempt at manipulation. "Do not expect to see your nephews again if you do this. You are choosing to cut yourself off from this family." I looked at her for a long moment, then said, "If that is the choice you are making, then I guess that tells me everything I need to know about what family means to you." I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Behind me I could hear them talking frantically, probably planning their next approach. My mom called after me. "You will regret this, Serena. Family is all you have in this world." I turned back one more time. Real family does not try to take away your dreams because they failed to plan for their own lives. Then I walked out, got in my car, and drove back to my beautiful, peaceful, quiet house. As I sat in my driveway, I realized that for the first time in years, I felt completely free. The harassment started immediately. My phone began ringing constantly with calls from family members demanding that I reconsider. My mom called every morning at 7 o'clock sharp before I left for work to tell me how selfish and ungrateful I was being. My dad called during my lunch breaks to remind me of everything they had done for me over the years. Madison sent long text messages about how her children were asking why Aunt Serena did not love them anymore. When the immediate family pressure did not work, they recruited reinforcements. Suddenly, aunts and uncles I had not heard from in years were calling to tell me I was making a mistake. My grandmother, who was 85 years old, called to say she was disappointed in how I had turned out. Even family friends started approaching me at work and in the grocery store saying they had heard about the situation and thought I should reconsider. The social media campaign was perhaps the most hurtful part. Madison posted vague messages on Facebook about family betrayal and how some people forget where they come from. My mom shared articles about the importance of family loyalty. They never mentioned me by name, but anyone who knew our family understood exactly what they were talking about. I watched as mutual friends liked and commented on these posts, expressing sympathy for Madison's situation. After 2 weeks of constant harassment, I made the decision to go completely no contact. I blocked all of their phone numbers unfriended and blocked them on all social media platforms and changed my address with the post office so they could not send letters to my house. I even had to notify HR at my job that my family might try to contact me at work and that they should not put any calls through. The first month was the hardest. Despite everything that had happened, I felt guilty. I questioned whether I was being too harsh, whether I should have just let them move in for a few months. I grieved the loss of my relationship with my nephews, who were innocent victims in this whole mess. There were nights when I almost picked up the phone to call and apologize. But then I started noticing how much better my life was becoming. Without the constant drama and emergency phone calls, I had mental space to focus on other things. I started getting to know my neighbors who turned out to be wonderful people. I joined a book club at the local library. I began taking cooking classes and actually using my beautiful kitchen for more than just reheating takeout. My house became exactly what I had dreamed it would be. I painted the walls in colors I loved, bought furniture that reflected my style, and created spaces that brought me joy. I could come home from work to silence and peace. I could have friends over without worrying about children running around or family drama erupting. I could use my income for things I wanted instead of constantly being asked to cover someone else's emergencies. My savings account, which had been depleted by the house purchase, started growing again. Without Madison's frequent requests for loans that never got repaid, I was able to build up an emergency fund. I even started contributing more to my retirement account and planning for a vacation to Europe that I had always wanted to take. About 6 months after I cut contact, I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. She mentioned that Madison and Derek had found a small 2-bedroom apartment across town, and that Derek had finally gotten a steady job at a warehouse. The children were doing fine and had adjusted to their new school. In other words, they had solved their problems without my help, just like I knew they could. I also heard through this same friend that my parents were still telling everyone who would listen that I had abandoned my family in their time of need. They had apparently rewritten the story to make themselves the victims and me the villain. According to their version, I had cruelly refused to help my sister's innocent children and chosen money over family love. But I felt no regret about my decision. My house had appreciated in value since I bought it, my neighborhood relationships were strong, and I had built a community of friends who respected my boundaries and supported my choices. I had learned that family love should not require sacrificing your dreams for other people's poor planning. The most important lesson I learned was that saying no to manipulation is actually saying yes to self-respect. Real family members support your independence and celebrate your success. They do not try to exploit your kindness or guilt you into fixing their problems. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is forcing them to solve their own problems instead of enabling their dependency. I learned that a house becomes a home not when family fills it, but when peace lives in every room. And sometimes the family you choose is the one that truly chooses you back. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who tried to take advantage of your success? Share your story in the comments below, because I know I am not the only one who has faced this kind of pressure. If this story helped you feel less alone in your own family struggles, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And do not forget to subscribe for more real stories about life boundaries and finding your own path to happiness. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the courage to protect your peace, even when it is hard. Remember that you deserve to live in the home you worked so hard to create.